I am here, Finavir, but aside from your strong desire to leave this place, I know not your purpose.
I have two goals. One, as you know, to leave here, but I do have another goal. A dear friend was taken. I have reason to believe that she's being held somewhere in the city.
It definitely appears to be a ledger of sorts.
This is incredibly valuable. You could destroy someone with one of these. I don't believe in a feasible exit through the gates I came in, so I'll trust that there's a way forward.
Welcome back, Foundlings, to another episode of the Gate Chronicles. This is Chronicle 1, Chapter 80. Yes, I went back and I was listening to episode 50-something or other, or maybe it was 60. Either way, we had said that we were going to celebrate every episode up until 100. We have not done any of that, maybe like for 2 episodes, but that's perfectly fine. Anyway, my name is Emily. I am your game master and host for this series, session, episode, and also the person that does the editing, blah, 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 all that stuff. But today, I'm joined by one of my players. Can you guess who it is?
It's me, Jaden Amajo, who plays Finavir. That guy. Me.
That guy.
Yeah.
And who is Finavir?
Finavir?
Besides being that guy.
Finavir is a jobless hobo that goes from town to town with his merry bunch of misfits, but he doesn't even have them anymore. He's now just alone, cold, and afraid.
Alone, cold, and afraid. I guess we'll get started.
All right, let's do this thing.
Using his chance, Finavir explored the Order Bishop's quarters, searching for any leverage to aid in his means of escape. What he came across there certainly gave him all he needed. With little time left on his hands, Finavir delved into a secret tunnel that he and Kristoff discovered in the bishop's office. Now, he may be stuck between a rock and a hard place. We left off last session with you going down these marble steps underneath of the statue of the matron, but you had asked Kristoff to close it behind.
Yep. I all of those things definitely happen. Of the few things I remember, that is one of them.
It does close behind you. As I recall, you did tell Kristoff you would wait for him as long as you could, but you stand there as the statue overhead slides back into place. It seals shut. You are left in total darkness.
I thought there would be more light. Uh-oh. Finn will close his eyes and in a desperate attempt, try to remember his surroundings with what little light he had a moment ago. And try to think, was there like a sconce table or something that had a torch on it?
Oh, well, as you walked down the stairs, you remember seeing that the marble stairs went down into a stone-ish sort of room, which also had a similar white color to it. Now, you estimate the room itself, along with the stairs, was about 15 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhat narrow, but still wide enough, so probably about 10 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
You do not recall seeing any sconces or braziers or light sources.
This is one of those moments where I wish I'd allowed myself to swear.
Crap. You see no light in this area, and your eyes are closed, so that really doesn't help either.
Will open his eyes.
Oh, okay.
But as I recall, there was, air quotes, total darkness. So I don't think it changed much.
After a few moments, you look around, your eyes adjusting. You can smell this mustiness that's in the air, and you hear the sound of water slowly just dripping off in the distance. But you see a very faint, dim, blue glowing light on the ceiling, but it's further down the hall. It seems like it's cut off by an archway, almost. But that's the only light that you can see, and it barely illuminates anything.
Not one to waste time, as he knows it's only a matter of time before there's someone potentially chasing him down. He will carefully make his way forward. Without light, I don't think there's a reason to run. No need to trip. So he will make his way towards the light.
Oh, of course.
Just using the wall as a guide.
Using the wall. Okay, so you walk over. You try and maneuver your way over to the nearest wall, reaching your hand out. And you do come into contact with this wall. And here, it feels pretty slick. Not soaking wet, but definitely damp. And you definitely catch a somewhat foul odor from the wall.
Is this particularly standout kind of odor?
It's kind of faint. It's more like water that's been standing for too long.
So he'll still use it as a guide, but he'll use like the tips of his fingers.
Yeah. You reach what it feels like the end of the wall here, and you see this blue glowing light, which looks like it is just right outside of a doorway. You peer out at it, and it looks kind of like glowing moss. And it seems to run just a little bit down the hallway, just sort of straight, and then you can see that it stops. But you don't see the details. You can see that it only illuminates about 5 feet in the sections that it is covering.
We take whatever path forward we can at this point. Beggars don't got a lot of options, so he will follow the moss as far as he can.
You follow the moss for a little bit. Roll a perception check for me, please.
It's been so long. I've missed you, perception check. That is a 19.
You follow this moss as far as you're able to, stumbling a little bit over some debris on the floor. You kick something that feels a little soft, and it screeches a little bit and runs away. And it all you screech, it screeches. But this moss seems to end at an intersection.
No.
You don't really see any more at this time. You can either go left, or you can go right, or you can go back.
Nah, I'm fine with not going back. Like, there could be, like, deadly monster Teenage Mutant Ninja Toto down here. And I'll take that over the bishop. That man gives me the heebie-jeebies. Also, he had a murder box.
And you have the murder box now.
Yeah, it's my murder box now.
Yes, you're carrying all this stuff with you. Hey, you have a 10-foot ladder in a box.
I do have a 10-foot ladder in a box. There's this convenient briefcase handle and everything.
Mm-hmm. You can't really see it, but you're holding it.
I can feel its weight.
And it's reassuring.
It's totally going to be useful, maybe.
As are many things.
It's Chekhov's ladder in a box. Do these different paths sound any different?
Roll a fresh perception check.
Let's go. That is a natural one for a total of 13. When things get dark, things get darker.
You know, the chances of failure in this situation are very high. It's not really your fault. Finavir, both ways could lead outside, and both ways could lead back to the bishop's quarters. It's a coin toss.
Okay. I want to check one more thing. Is there flowing water on the ground? Or floating fluid? Moving fluid?
Do you mean, is it like deep? Or
like, is there a current that I can stick my finger in to determine the direction? If not, I'm just going to go right.
There is no current in here. And strangely, even though it is damp down here, there is nothing to say that it was ever really in use recently. It just seems like this underground, as far as you can feel, the walls seem unnatural, strangely smooth, actually, as you were running your hands along them after you left out from the stairwell room.
So there was like a...
there was a stony texture.
Yeah,
originally.
there was a stony texture to it. Now it's a lot smoother.
And even on like some surfaces, it feels kind of rough, like you could cut your fingers on it.
Well.
Right it is.
Finavir's going to go right down the dark hallway and try to see with basically his immediate area, using his hand to graze against the wall. And he's gotten some distance, but this has kind of triggered a memory of his. But Finavir, when he was young, his mother, back when he knew her, took him from his home and ran into the forest with him. At some point, he had been instructed to cover his ears, walk forward, and sing. He didn't know what all that meant at the time, but the singing was comforting, and it got him to Teba, which is where he ended up growing up for the rest of his life before the campaign. So this is a moment where I think that he would sing to himself for comfort.
Finavir, you feel a great unease walking through these tunnels. And the fact is, you have no other options. You have no hope right now. And you really could use something. And that memory pops in your head. And you begin humming.
The humming continues, and it's almost disingenuous, as the song that had kept him going hasn't been the same since.
And Finavir, for a moment, as you're walking, you stop. You look up briefly, and you see more of the glowing moss. You see that kind of like has little patches that go down the hallway. You see one of them branching to the right.
Like as it's... Okay, it's branching off towards the right. So, am I at another cross paths or larger room than a tunnel?
It seems that so far, this moss is just like in a line of the tunnel, and where it's turning right seems to be a crossroads. But there are 3 tunnels at this point.
Well, light seems favorable. I liked it better when I had light.
Whatever light there is. Yes.
Finavir, you're kind of out of desperation. He goes to cast the light spell on his vestment. Light! Light! Blast you, light! Defeated, he will continue with the moss.
I need you to roll another perception check.
That is a 27 perception.
As you are continuing to follow along with this moss, you see as it kind of stops all of a sudden, leaving you on this trail until you come down to another crossroads where you see it on the ceiling again. But just as you reach this area, you swear you hear the sound of metal clinking that seems to be crawling along the walls. And you briefly spot what looks to be like a little red dot that quickly goes out when you make eye contact with it.
I think this is appropriate. So blindly, Ben will attempt to telekinetic projectile in that direction, hoping that there's some loose rubble on the ground, launching towards that red light. You again, he'll say. 31 to hit. Something.
Flinging something in the dark, so whatever it is has concealment. Yeah, so you'll just roll a d20.
Nat 20!
Taking your hand, you wave it really quickly, and you telekinetically projectile some debris that was on the ground. You hear it come into contact with something metallic.
All right, that is 25 damage.
As this debris comes into contact with whatever it was that was looking at you, you see these little tiny sparks kind of fly off in the air, and you hear a tiny sound. And you see something kind of like dart hastily through the mossy area along the ceiling, crawling across it and down a path, following along with the moss, it seems.
I'll follow it. Can I keep up with it?
What's your speed?
30.
Yeah, you're keeping up with it easily. In fact, you can outpace it if you choose to do so. But as you're walking through this dark, I need you to roll an athletics.
Very fair. Ooh, okay. That's not the worst. 21 even.
As you are quickly chasing after this thing, you feel your foot catch on something, but you manage to bypass it and avoid stumbling.
All right.
You can't see what it is, though. The only thing that is lighting your way currently is the occasional red beam from this thing and the occasional moss that intersperses this hallway.
Finavir is going to maintain his focus on the sparking little creature as long as it looks like he can follow. But if it looks like it's going to start outpacing him, he's going to throw another telekinetic projectile. But until then, he's going to try to let it lead him because maybe it knows the way out and it's trying to run away.
You can tell that you're not going to have any trouble keeping up with this thing. It is injured and it is moving away from you. At some point, it does seem to just try and stop and kind of like close whatever its iris is so it disappears from your view momentarily.
If it does that, I'll try to make another concealed strike.
Okay. Flat check first.
That's an 11.
That bypasses. Go ahead and roll your to hit.
Come on, 29.
Okay. That hits. Roll your damage.
18.
Your telekinetic projectile flings into this corner where you assume that it must be throwing up a bunch of debris. You hear it impact, and there's a mini explosion. And you hear as little metal parts kind of fall to the ground.
He will go over and, I'll use this term loosely, examine it.
You start walking over. You can't see where it has fallen. The only thing you can kind of hear is like when you accidentally kick a little piece of it.
Yeah, that's what more or less. You reach out with your foot until you find a piece. Then you reach out with your hand to see if there's a hunk to examine.
A hunk to examine, you say?
Very gingerly.
Sure. You reach down, patting the ground, and you feel like you're touching this tiny little metallic spindle of a leg. It feels thin. And as you kind of like pick it up and handle it, it feels 3 to 4 inches long. And definitely a solid metal, but it's making you think of the ring bots.
Oh! If it's a small enough piece, he'll just try to pocket that with his clothing.
Okay.
Hang on to it. Pierce it in and out of a piece. Ringbot brooch.
You're in darkness again. You can see that there is some moss much further down the path.
He will continue to try to use the moss to guide his way.
Okay, go ahead and roll a perception check.
18.
You swear as you are walking down this hall, getting closer to this moss, that you hear the sound of birds not too far off in the distance.
He will let his ears guide him now, and or the scent of fresh air, if that ever comes into play.
Oh, sure. Currently, it smells musty, a little bit like old water down here. You still hear the skittering of what sounds like vermin to you. And you still see some moss on the ceiling, kind of trailing along this path. You follow after it. Luckily, it seems like most of the hallway that you've been following, almost all of them, there's not been much debris on the ground and really nothing overtly dangerous. Maybe the weird ringbot creature that was crawling on the ceiling, but
it was spooky.
You eviscerated it.
It got what it deserved. Probably. That one was like, really cute and sad. Basically made its own Pixar short. And this one, is probably working for the bad guys. And, the evil is contagious and it didn't deserve this.
It didn't deserve this. And there's going to be a little violin playing in the background as you're saying all this.
Somewhere there's like 3 little ringbots waiting for the 4th one to come back. And there's an empty charging station that they're all facing towards.
It's a little family. Mama bot, Papa bot, baby bot. Where's the brother bot?
Well, at least
Dead.
they didn't kill baby bot.
That would be cruel. So, Finavir,
Mm-hmm.
approaching to what you assume the end of this tunnel, you see there is an archway where there is a bright light at the end of it. You hear the sound of birds and a little bit of running water.
He will approach. Finally.
As you approach this door, you step out, you feel your feet stepping onto a grassy surface. It's strange. You thought you were stepping outside, but rather than going out somewhere, it seems you've gone in somewhere. This place looks like a very large white room with a ceiling that is about 10 feet higher than where you're standing. You seem to be at the top of a stair that curves along with the wall. This room is cylindrical in its shape. At the very center of it, you see there's a tree trunk that extends all the way from the ground up into the ceiling, and it seems like branches at the center of it, at the top, are wrapped around some sort of light, which is illuminating this room. You see the branches as they are actually clawing into the ceiling, climbing across them down this tunnel that you just emerged from. And you see what looks like a little bit of the moss on it. And you see the branches extending across this room in other directions, and you see other tunnels on their own staircases. Looks like there are 4 in total, including the one that you're on. The stairs that curve along the wall lead about 40 feet down. There is no railing. It looks like it's just a pure drop. But the stairs that curve along the wall lead all the way down to the base floor, where you see more grass. And in fact, you also see a white gazebo by the base of this tree. And while you're at it, why don't you roll another perception check? The most used skill of all.
The roll of betrayal. Oh, I say that, then it gives me a 24 just to prove me.
Wrong, yeah.
Yeah, to prove me wrong, yeah.
Yeah. You see, there are flower beds all around the ground floor. It's a beautiful garden. And you see that there seems to be a pond by the gazebo and a waterfall even. The water, though, it seems to be pouring from the tree itself. But Finavir, something about this place is familiar to you. You recall this very faint memory that, as a child, you remember your old home when you were with your mother. There was a tower and a garden that was encapsulated by rounded white walls. And you remember all of the flowers in the garden. And you remember that by the white gazebo, there were purple amaryllis planted there. And they're right where you remember them.
Whoa.
You hear a voice gently humming, coming from the gazebo area. And you swear you see a figure down there.
With as much as it would pain him, Finn looks up with what hope Liz left in his heart. Is there... He looks towards the gazebo and approaches.
Uh-huh.
You had pre-answered my questions very well. Yeah, flowers. Is there a purple amaryllis?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you look up, approach the gazebo. Is there anything...
You look up and approach the gazebo?
Yeah, well, if he was stooping down to examine the flowers...
No. You are all the way at the top of the 40-foot stair still.
He can see the purple amaryllis from there.
You're 40 feet up. You can see the amaryllis. It's a pretty big flower bed. You can see them.
It's well lit in here.
It's very well lit. It's actually, you can notice these white walls pretty well. This light that's up there is bright. It's almost like the sun, but not quite.
You said there was a set of stairs that led down there, right?
Yes. So
he will hasten his step down the stairs.
Sure. You quickly walk down the stairs, approaching this garden, this familiar place.
And when he gets to the bottom, he'll beeline it towards the gazebo.
Sure.
You know what? Is the tune that's being hummed familiar to him? Because if so, he'll join in.
It is not familiar to you.
Then he can't join in. So yeah, he'll go down the steps and he will beeline it towards the gazebo.
Sure. You walk down these steps, quickly making your way over to this gazebo. You see that there is a chair that is turned to face towards the pond, and you see a small table nearby But in the chair, you see a woman. She's wearing a white-colored dress. She has blonde hair from what you can tell. And she's just enjoying the moment, looking at this water.
I'm assuming from the description it's not a familiar face.
Well, Finavir, if I recall, your mother was fairly fair-skinned and also had blonde hair.
Would Finn have forgot the face?
She's not looking at you. She's looking at the water. And you're not facing, you're behind her, essentially.
Oh, I didn't understand. Finn would lose all sense of reality, succumbing to what remains of hope. He'll drop the briefcase. He had rehearsed in so many ways, and so many times, if he had ever saw his mother again, what he would say, what he would do, all these dramatic ideas of his, of how he would feign a cold shoulder, or how long it's been, how she left him, or how he would just run at her with open arms, or start up a song, something that she'd be familiar with. He had rehearsed these so often that his foster father had become quite annoyed with it. But in this moment, he can't bring himself to any of those, and simply walks forward, unable to speak, with his hand stretched out, unable to bring himself to any other action besides to reach out and touch the shoulder.
You reach out as you walk towards this woman, placing your hand on her shoulder. She seems to have sensed your presence before you even got too close. She turns slightly just as your hand is about to touch her, and she looks at you. You don't recognize this woman.
Finn will take his hand back. I'm having a somewhat embarrassed look on his face. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, hello. What brings you into my garden?
That's actually a long story. I used to grow up in a place like this. It's also familiar, and I thought you might be someone that I knew.
Ah, I see. Who did you think I was?
Oh, Finn will turn beet red. It's not important.
Oh, come now. Certainly, if I looked like someone that you would have known, you could admit at least. I might be flattered.
Someone I cared for very much. My mother.
Ah.
Your hair is as brilliant and vibrant as hers was. This place, as tranquil as her garden ever was.
Mothers do tend to have quite an effect on their children. But, alas, child, I am not your mother.
I've noticed. I'm so sorry for the disruption.
All is well. Tell me, how did you come to my garden? Not many people come to visit me, you see. And it's quite lonely at times.
No, honestly, I'm lost. I kept ducking in random directions until I ended up here.
Ah, you poor dear.
You're the first friendly face in some time.
I would say I get that a lot, but as I've said, I don't have many visitors.
Oh, where are my manners? Finavir. And you are?
She stands up, gracefully brushing her dress so that it is pristine. And Finavir, this woman is strikingly beautiful. And if you had to put a word, she is the definition of perfection. You see that she's wearing a strand of pearls that complement her complexion well. Yes. Well, if you're lost, I suppose we should get you back to where you belong. So, does anyone know you've gotten lost? Did someone send you here? Typically, my retainers would announce you, but seeing that you've stumbled in here, I can understand why that wouldn't have been the case.
Haven't seen a soul for some time, and I don't think anyone knows where I am. I've been separated from my group for some time. It's been many days.
Oh, I'm so sorry, my dear.
I don't even know if they're alive.
It is
quite frightening. Tell me, how did you manage to find your way into the tunnels?
I'm afraid I can't say. I'm sorry. What I can say is I never intended to be here. Just looking to get back to the city.
Well, I suppose that's good news. For me.
She says, and as she does that, you all of a sudden hear as doors begin to close. You look up and you see that the walls, especially where the entrance that you came in from, seems to shut, or a metal door closing the site. It's a good thing that no one is going to be looking for you. You said your name was Finavir. I see you're dressed in the raiment of the bishop's initiates, his little acolytes, and a little mouse like you doesn't belong in a place like this. All of a sudden, the garden around you fades from view, and you see, instead of a tree there seems to be this cylindrical tube with some sort of pulsating liquid inside. Its color that was once a whitish blue suddenly switches to a red color. The roots and the tree limbs that you saw upon first entry appear now to be coiling masses of cables. And Finavir, you feel as these things begin to coil around your legs and they grab at you.
It seems you may not have the most innocent of intentions here, but I do believe we could settle matters peacefully, if you'd be so inclined.
I'm sorry.
I will see my friends again.
Yes, perhaps. Not today.
You don't want to do this.
I don't. You humans are always so proud and so arrogant. You believe that this world is yours to command. You're the reason this world is this way. I have no reason to keep you alive.
So, you feel as these coiling tendrils wrap around you, this woman, this thing that is before you, in the guise of a woman, whatever it is. You see a facade that kind of just looks at you blankly. There is no humanity in those eyes. It is stronger and more powerful than anything you have ever encountered. And in this moment where your body is snatched up by these carbon-like tendrils, you feel them begin to constrict around you, squeezing the life out of you. In that moment where your body is snatched up by these carbon-like tendrils, your life flashes before your eyes. You wonder if you've made the right choices. Every moment till now, it is as if the world has been against you, and regret fills you.
It's not fair!
But then, all of a sudden, a thought enters your mind in a voice that is not your own.
If you could change the past, would you? The world needs balance. Take something from it, and it will take something from you. Finavir.
And it's in the blink of an eye that you see it. Just as the sharpened blade of one of these tendrils prepares to bore through your skull, you see a hooded figure appear behind the woman, and glowing green irises peer at you. And in that moment, everything stops. The blade, just centimeters from your eye, silence claws at the air, threatening to break at any moment. And then, a hand grasps your shoulder and forcefully pulls you back. You feel yourself torn apart, but you see yourself still locked in the coiling cables that are squeezing the life out of you. But you're on the ground. A voice cuts across the silence.
Hurry, get up. This won't hold her forever.
The hooded figure is behind you now, and a portal hovers precariously, straining against the fabric of reality. And all of a sudden, you can hear what seems to be a cracking sound that fills the air, and you see fissures beginning to form around the blonde-haired woman. Her eyes suddenly shift and look directly at you. But the small hand of your rescuer grabs hold of you once more and pulls you into the swirling mass. And as you fall, Finavir, you see it. Beyond your reach in the chamber, a massive black gate. Its form more ancient than any you've ever seen, and your breath hitches in your throat as the portal shuts.
5 years leading to this one moment.
And I think that is where we're going to end this week's episode of the Gate Chronicles. You know,
Excellent.
After all, like the actual hitches from Sirenscape.
Oh, this explains why you're so excited.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've been this amped up for the next episode.
Yeah. Stuff has happened. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Plot stuff,
as far as you're aware. But thank you, Foundlings, for listening to this week's episode of the Gate Chronicles. We're glad that you joined us, and we hope you'll stick along. And I do hope that you're ready for the next episode. But beyond that, we do want to give a big thank you and shout out to our patrons, Stephen Howland and Jason Lillis, for supporting our podcast through Patreon and helping us financially because we are broke. And that's what it does, folks. But if you want to support us in many ways, if you want to support us in many ways, you can by subscribing to the podcast, following the podcast, and also telling a friend about us. But also, you can support us monetarily by going to our Patreon. You can join us in our Discord and hang out with us and just give us like emotional support. That's also nice. We also want to thank our music and ambiance creators, Michael Ghelfi and Monument Studios, who we actually that's pretty much all we used in this episode. Maybe some sound effects barring that, but hey, that's pretty good. If you want to support them, their links are in the description below. And as always, we will see you next week on another episode of the Gate Chronicles. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.